Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Um, the reason why I wanted to offer this webinar is because it's very easy in the midst of a crisis to just hope to get to the far end of it, to get to when we look back at this and it has all been a bad dream. And, uh, I think that if we do that, we miss a very big opportunity. Unless you're on the front line, unless you are helping others in hospitals and so on, unless you're still going to work and the outer world is still with you, what's happening to most of us is that we are asked to stay at home, either with our loved ones or apart from our loved ones, and to spend a lot of time indoors with our external life entirely fallen off. So what I want to talk about is that the fact that in the midst of this crisis, that in which we can only see the challenges, there is a very unique and rare opportunity that we have. And that opportunity is to see our lives, our inner lives, without the distraction of our usual outer life. And this is the opportunity that 1 year from now, when we look back, hopefully, on all of this, and when all this, I'm hoping, will have passed, that we will see this as a very unique opportunity that I hope will never come again in this particular form, where our external lives were entirely fallen off and we only had these inner lives and whatever is in the four walls of our homes to focus on. So what I wanted us is to talk a little bit about how to take advantage of that, how to not just cope with the situation, but how to benefit in terms of our inner lives from that situation. Let us do this. Okay. So what is this unique self-development opportunity of what we're in the midst of? Again, we're talking about not people who are on the front line, or medical workers whose external lives are still very active. I'm talking to the rest of us who are asked to go home, to stay at home, and therefore experience fundamentally a rupture in your physical space, in the way that you work, study, your finances, your intimate family, social relationships, and even your existential stance. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So we're asked to stay at home, whatever that home is. And you might find yourself, if you're an international student, for example, you might find yourself trapped away from your family members. You might, if you're an elderly person, find yourself that suddenly nobody's coming to see you. You're feeling like neglected, that nobody's coming to take care of you. The other option is that you might be in your space, but be with all of your family members. So you feel trapped with the family. So you are spending now all of your time with your spouse, with your kids, your siblings, or roommates. And what we have to realize is that we have built our lives, we have built them to look a particular way. So we go to work, we come back, the children go to school, they come back. And we built it that way for a reason, because it works for us. So that now this radical disruption will cause inevitably conflicts, because suddenly your life is organized not how you have planned it, but how, there will be much higher density of contact, and whatever conflict is latent or potential, that it will be brought up and laid bare, in a sense. You might feel like you can't spend this much time indoors, that you're feeling trapped or claustrophobic. You might feel that you're too afraid to go outdoors, even for essential supplies, so that no matter what it is that you do, you feel this sense of impending threat. Now, when it comes to work, study, finances, obviously this has hit very many people very hard, it's some worse than others. And you might be just wondering, like, will I be able to continue my work, my study? How can I afford to get myself and my family through the crisis? You might think about what this disruption means for your long-term education and professional goals. And all of us have plans, that we have goals, and they're not just short-term goals, they're long-term goals. This means that you're going to, what is happening right now, suddenly what you will feel is Like everything that you have planned in the future that was based on something that's happening now is disrupted. Some even things like you have planned to finish your school by this point and then do this and then do that, or even in terms of your career, in terms of your jobs, and then suddenly everything feels broken at the same time. You might simply think, will I be financially ruined as a consequence of this? In terms of radical disruption of intimate family and just social relationships, you might find yourself in a very interesting situation where either you're spending a lot of, you're having to make decisions about your relationship that you didn't think you had to make before you went into the situation. So that means maybe moving in with somebody or staying apart from somebody, and so also with your spouses, with your significant others, you have built a relationship based on a particular amount of private time and free space between us, and now all of this is going to be disrupted. You might be wondering if you're endangering or neglecting your elderly parents or relatives or neighbors if you visit them. And if you are the elderly parent, neighbor, relative, you might be thinking, like, have I been left alone? Like, has everybody simply disappeared? What does this mean? Does this mean they don't care for me? So your experience would suddenly be very radically altered. You might have family members trapped across the world and wonder what if something happens to them and I can't go and help them because of the current situation and restrictions on traveling. People get sick, they die, they're buried, and we might suddenly be left with this feeling of helplessness with regards to that. And finally, and this is an interesting thing that has come from this situation, because the threat is threat to life, not just to the economy or social, it's threat to life, that our existential questions immediately will come to the forefront. So that the kinds of things that you might not, unless you're existentially prone, you might not think about all the time, these questions might suddenly come up to your mind. So things like, well, I'm afraid I'll get sick or die, or I'm not ready to die, or I feel like I haven't done what I needed to do before I die. So the questions concerning mortality can either pop up in the mind or kind of stay and give you sort of latent anxiety. You might be afraid that your loved ones will get sick and die, and worry about your children, your spouses, your siblings, your neighbors, anybody in the world your community, and you might worry about their health and what happens if they die. You might wonder, part of this experience is that there is this kind of feeling that you don't know how long this will last. What if this is going to be life from now on, a version of this, right? You being in the four walls and that being it. And I think this worry comes up at the back of the mind. How long, and what happens if this is what life is for me? Obviously, the obvious question that we hear a lot about is, should I stay at home even though I'm very low risk, so nothing will happen to me? But I could potentially endanger others. And that question, it's an existential question. What risk are you willing to put others in by you doing what it is that you feel like you need to do? And finally, given this new reality, what am I supposed to live for or strive for? So before the crisis, you might have had this kind of idea, okay, I know what I'm about, I know where I'm going, and it broke. Basically, this thing just comes and just potentially breaks all the plans. And as I said, the temptation that we have is to try to hold on to these old plans exactly how they were, and not really take it into account the challenge and even the opportunities that you miss out by holding the plans exactly as they were before. So the temptation that I find most frequent to be, there's several temptations. One temptation is to try to just pass the time, to wait it out. So it's like pretending that you are on some sort of a vacation, or that you're on a staycation, and that you're just gonna pass the time as quickly as you can. And this time can be passed in doing sort of things that you find more enjoyable, that you usually spend time at home in, or you just want to, sleep through it and wake up when the nightmare is over. So if you find that you're sleeping more than usual, that you're apathetic or melancholic, so this would be the part of the temptation to try to pretend that this time that we have in this crisis, that all it is a time that we need to pass through as quickly as we can. The other option is to try to distract yourself with either TV or news or social media. Again, the idea is here, just pass the time, pretend this doesn't exist. Addictions. I just read yesterday how LCBO was reporting 40% increase in liquor consumption. So obviously, a lot of us are going to the addictions route, which is the route of either whatever gives you comfort usually prior to the crisis, just indulging in it even more, be it food or substances. For some people, it's gambling. For some people, it's pornography. So engaging in distractions, addictions in order to get through it as fast as you can. So this is what I want to point out. If you yield to the temptation to try to wait it out or pass the time as quickly as you can, you miss out this very unique chance to do something that you will never be able to do in the same way, because I'm hoping we will never have a situation in which we are asked to stay at home for a month, 3 months, a year, however long it is. The second set of ways to cope that I found that people have is that they have a temptation to try to lead the pre-corona life just indoors, which means that you kind of, you say, look, I want to be productive. I was this person before corona, and now I'm going to do exactly what I was doing just inside. So this is for people who try to maintain identical routine they had. So if you used to exercise outside, you would then move that inside. If you used to do this much work outside, you would do this much work inside. So you're just moving the same life, but you're not really reflecting on how what you're experiencing is different than just being forced to be inside, right? That there's these unique challenges and that you're overcoming them, but you're not seeing the unique opportunity, which is that you get to see your life with the external life fallen out. Now you get to see your inner life undiluted. It's like it will unveil itself. Your inner life, your inner patterns are going to unveil themselves to you, and you will be able to see them so much more clearly, because there is no way to escape outside into that world and try to hide what that life is. So what I want to do, and here's the webinar outline, is that I want us to do two things. First, obviously, there is a self-developmental opportunity here that I would love you to explore, but it is very difficult to explore if you can't deal with the anxiety, or you can't cope with anxiety that you're experiencing regarding the situation. So basically, I've split it up in two different sections. One is how to cope with anxiety, and the other is what are these opportunities for self-development.